Happy Epiphany. Happy 12th night. Happy Little Christmas. Happy Three Kings Day, as this day is so often called. In our house, the tree is still up. The decorations are still there. The nativities are still out. And the Magi just joined the nativity on Friday. I have a little snippet of that here. We've got the three Magi, got Mary and Joseph, and the angel who's been talking to the Magi. And here's Jesus. Now, Jesus, I was saying before we began, Jesus was likely not a baby because it took them a long time to get from their country to Bethlehem. He could have been 2 or 3 or 4 years old. So he was probably not he probably didn't look like that. But I don't have a figurine that looks like a toddler Jesus. Today marks the last of the season of Christmas, and from now until Lent, our readings are going to be all about epiphanies. Those aha moments in scriptures when our eyes are open to something. But about today, it's believed that the Magi began their journey separately in different locations in the East, perhaps in the various locations in ancient Persia. They each separately studied the stars, and they each discerned that the stars showed them a sign. And the call to follow that star was so compelling that they each left their comfort zones to go on a quest, not knowing about the others who are doing the same thing. The Bible doesn't say how many there were, nor does the Bible specify their genders, but tradition has it that there were 3 of them. And their quest, because they're looking for the King of the Jews, their quest brings them to Jerusalem. And along the way to get there, they finally encounter one another. They cross paths because they're all on the same quest, led by the same star. The reason they're going to Jerusalem is because they're trying to find the newborn King of the Jews. And they figured, well, let's go talk to the current king and maybe he can give us a hint. But of course, the current king knows nothing. They may have expected that Herod was going to show them to some room in the palace and say, oh yeah, here he is. He was, here's the newborn king. But that's not what happens. Herod is a clueless king. He's not at all wise. And so he calls together his coterie of chief priests and scribes, and they search the scrolls, and they find a piece of scripture that prophesies that in Bethlehem of Judea, a king will be born there. Well, in addition to being clueless, Herod is also cruel and corrupt. And he had this well-known reputation of killing people who got in his way, including his own family members. So he concocts a scheme to con the kings, as we saw in the gospel today. Anyhow, nevertheless, he is an unwitting pointer. God uses even the corrupt, apparently, and the Magi moved towards Bethlehem. And when they arrive, they are indeed moved that their calling, their quest, has indeed brought them to the child Jesus and his parents. And they're so moved that they present their presents of gold and frankincense and myrrh, and they even prostrate themselves. They've had an aha moment, an epiphany. And then, of course, in the dream, they have this vision that they shouldn't go home the same way. They should go home by another way. So at this point, I'm poised at a fork in the road. We can either talk about how power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely, and we can talk about politics. But I would rather go the way of what is the good news in this story? What might the angels be whispering in our ear? And so I have 4 questions that I ask myself and would share them with all of us. And so, one question that I ask myself all the time: what is your calling? What's your calling, Sharon, and all of us? What tugs at you so strongly that it nudges you out of your comfort zone? What makes you so curious that against all odds, to quote the James Taylor song, against all odds, you just can't help but follow a star that only you can see, or so you think? And then another question I ask myself, and I happen to see the answer right in front of me every Sunday, but nevertheless, I still ask myself, who are the like-minded folks that you connect with as you follow this calling, much like the Magi discovered one another on their journey? Who are the people in your cohort, the ones you feel so connected with that it's like family? There's no competition. Competition isn't on your radar. These are the people who are loving neighbors and friends and colleagues and collaborators. And the third question I ask myself is, what keeps you, Sharon? What keeps you seeking? What keeps you going? What keeps you open to all the possibilities? Even the unusual stuff, the metaphorical signs in the stars, whatever that means to you. What helps you stay the course? Might it be scripture, are either my own or other holy writings that I'm pointed to, much like the Magi, who were pointed to a whole set of scripture that was completely unfamiliar to them. Maybe it's other mentors, maybe it's those like-minded friends. What is it? What is it that helps me stay the course? What keeps me seeking, especially on those days when I doubt? And finally, am I willing to recalculate like the Magi did? Am I willing to let my encounter with Christ change me and change my journey of faith and life? And so I welcome a conversation about all of this, as is our custom in this community.